I was just about to make one of my really up-to-date videos about a TV series that came out 10 years ago to explore the relationship between the Third Reich and science fiction, when suddenly I realised something quite alarming. Nazism had been involved in my science fiction and my fantasy for a lot longer than that. Those of us who are British have grown up with Nazis in their science fiction. The Dalek was created by Brits who had grown up during the Second World War, and it truly represents everything we British found horrifying about the German war machine, meaning lots of turreted weapons going around screaming, "Exterminate!" Daleks are totalitarian, fascistic and racist. They're a tank with genocidal intent. So, I was brought up with Nazis in my science fiction, but it wasn't only that. They were also in my fantasy. You see, I grew up with Daleks, but I also grew up with Lord of the Rings. I mean, Sauron is a Nazi. Lord of the Rings Sauron, the weapon-building ghoul from somewhere out in the east that comes to disturb the gentle peace of England's home counties. I mean Hobbiton. Tolkien was literally writing Lord of the Rings during the Second World War. He was sending out chapters to his son, Christopher, who was serving abroad in Africa, which makes the story of Frodo and his journey have so much more emotional weight. It's the concern Tolkien must have had for his son, serving abroad against an evil horde. And there's a relationship between these sci-fi and fantasy baddies. You see, both Daleks and Orcs, along with that strong moral sense of good versus evil, were forged from the British experience of fighting German fascism in the Second World War. You have to remember, the British experience of war was far more nuanced after the First World War, which seemed to most to be an unnecessary slaughter. But the Second World War was different. Fascism, and German Nazism in particular, lay at the bad end of a much more understandable moral spectrum of good versus evil. Post-war has meant Cold War, as Western science fiction still tried to portray an authoritarian evil, but since the enemy was now communism and not German fascism, the evil tended to focus on the collective, hive-minded nature of the threat. I'm talking Cybermen from Doctor Who, the Borg from Star Trek, the Replicators in Stargate, the Shadows in Babylon 5, or the Founders from Deep Space Nine. All terrible villains, no doubt, but less specifically Nazi adjacent. But one massive franchise has kept the you-know-who in the villains gallery. Star Wars, a huge franchise which has been transforming Nazi tropes for over 50 years now. Yes, the Empire is classic Nazi, the hierarchical system using violence to dominate others. It's there in the ideology of the Empire, but even more in the aesthetics. The helmets, the suits, the regalia, good grief, the troops are even called stormtroopers. It's even more apparent in Andor. On the surface, the Empire in Andor is all British Empire. Fat, lazy, British accented types trying to take advantage of the locals, the natives. But the deeper you get into the Empire in Andor, the more Nazi it feels. Violent and ruthless, not just as a way to rule or gain information, but also within the hierarchy as well. I've said enough. Before I go, I just want to talk about the reason I'm talking about German N-word in science fiction in the first place, and that's the Man in the High Castle, because this really is one of the best reimaginings of Nazism I've ever seen on the screen. The counterfactual context of Philip K. Dick's original novel is that Nazis and the Japanese have won the Second World War. We experience how Nazism might have been transplanted into America, and it's done really well with a thorough understanding of history and the dangerous evil of Nazi ideology. I know that today everyone and their mother seems to call everyone else and their mother a Nazi. I think that ends up downplaying much of Nazism's original threat and meaning. Nazis can still make dangerous enemies when handled intelligently, because Nazis are intelligent and dangerous enemies. Please like and subscribe.